Aloha! Welcome to the video. So this week I'm going to be finishing up, or part 2, of the pahoa, the Hawaiian dagger. Last week I got it shaped mostly to shape, sanded down to 120, and this week I'm going to be putting in the pearl inlays. This is black and white mother of pearl, and then I'm going to be sanding it down, finishing it off, putting in the tiger shark teeth, lashing it up, and the final coating. So I'm super excited for this piece. I really enjoyed the design that I made for it, and so I'm really excited to keep working on it. So the first step here is just making the triangle patterns. If you watched my last video, I explained the triangle patterns, but in Hawaii, the triangle shape reflects or is a shark tooth. And then when you have them in different patterns, they mean a variety of different things. But when they're in a row, the patternation of it usually refers to like lineage and family and history, courage, and stuff like that. They're also used for like family crests, but in different patterns, custom patterns per family. For this piece, they're just going to be in a row, or nihumano, which is a row of shark's teeth. Or triangles. And then I'm using black and white mother of pearl. And what I'm trying to do with the inlay is I'm trying to cut the inlay as close as I can to the depth of the pearl. One of the challenges I have though is that each one of these pearl sections is slightly different in thickness, and so it's kind of hard to get a good perfect fit. I'm just trying to get as close as I can, and then I'm going to be using a metal file to kind of smooth it off before I go back and sand it. I can't use my disc sander right away because the pearl is quite a bit harder than the koa wood. And so if I just start with the sander, what that'll do is it'll sand away the koa, the wood, before it sands away the pearl inlays, which it'll leave a really bumpy surface. And so I'm going to try to avoid that as much as I can. And then to inlay them, I'm just putting in some super glue. This is more of an industrial super glue. And then setting in the teeth. I'm cutting them pretty tight. I want the tolerances to be really close. I'm doing that for a few reasons. One, so that they sit really nice with the super glue, and two, so that you don't notice the edges as much when I have the finished piece. This is a little bit more of a high-end piece, and so I'm taking a little bit more time and just being a little bit more careful with each one of those cutouts and each one of those insets. With this first side, I used a marking knife to mark around the outer edges that I would be cutting out for the inlays. I didn't end up liking that as much just because it was kind of a pain to keep the marking knife right where I wanted it without it cutting out and gouging anywhere. And so the second time I used just a sharpened pencil to give me a nice clean layout, and then the inlay where I cut it out is on the inside of that pencil. And so it made for quite a bit easier layout draw, and then from there just gluing them in, cutting them in. I did them one at a time. Historically, I've cut it all of them out and then put in the inlays. I didn't do that this time because one of the things that happens when I do that oftentimes is I'll get gouges, just because the koa gets thin towards the junction point where the two triangles come together. And so by gluing them in after I finished with each one, it left it nice and strong and easier to cut out each additional inlay. And that worked out perfect. So now that I have them all in, and I roughed them out first with that metal file, and then I'm going back now with the disc sander. I'm going to sand them down to 220, as well as clean out the inner edges. I want to do most of this clean out work before the tiger shark teeth are put in place, and the reason for that is once they're in place, it makes it a little bit harder to work with because I have to be careful where I hold it. Obviously the tiger shark teeth are sharp, but they're a natural material, and so if I accidentally whack them against the metal on my vise or something like that, it can chip them or break them. And so I'm doing all of this cleanup work before I cut in the groove and put in the tiger shark teeth. But once I get the entire thing sanded down to 220, I can go ahead and get the groove cut, and I'll use a tungsten carbide bit to cut in the groove. And that's the same. It's the same bit I use for pretty much all of my pieces. Occasionally I'll change that. but I really like it. It doesn't jump as much, so it's not a cutting bit, and because of that I can really put in a nice straight line. Oftentimes when I can, I'll use my index finger and run it against the wood, and that helps me keep it in a nice straight line. I haven't yet stabbed myself with it. That's always a fear of mine just because I'm applying a decent amount of pressure, but luckily I haven't yet. Now that I have that cut out, I can go ahead and get it ready for the teeth. I'm going to be putting in a little bit of epoxy first, just like I normally do. I did cut this groove pretty deep because I'm using very large tiger shark teeth. In fact, these are some of the largest tiger shark teeth I've ever used on a piece. I'm using them specifically for this piece. It was requested for this piece to be just a custom high-end piece, and so that's what I'm using. I've had those tiger shark teeth now for years. I just haven't had quite the right project for it yet for them, and so this worked out absolutely perfect. So now that I have all of the holes drilled into place, I'm going to go ahead and sand the entire thing down to 320. And then once it's sanded down to 320, which is going to be the final grit, I can now go ahead and oil it. Now I was excited to oil this thing the entire time because the koa wood that I used for this piece is absolutely gorgeous. This is a old piece of koa from old growth, and it's been sitting for, I think it's 25 years. I've had it now for a little over a year now. I'm just kind of waiting on a really good piece to use it on, and this worked out absolutely perfectly. Just unbelievably beautiful. You can see all of the waves, this three-dimensional effect. So that's the curl. It's just a result of the grain, where you have hard grain or dense grain and then softer grain right next to each other in alternating pattern, and it creates that beautiful look when the light reflects off of it. It's absolutely gorgeous. So I was just unbelievably in love with this piece. I would have loved to have kept this piece. So the last couple of steps, I need to lash the tiger shark teeth into place, and then I need to make a wrist strap, and then lash the wrist strap together and put in some decorative feathers on the end of the wrist strap. I'm going to be doing a pretty traditional lashing on the teeth. It's just this triangle pattern. I am going to double ply it though. I decided to double ply it for a couple of reasons. One, because that's a little bit more traditional, and two, because the two-ply look it'll make it look a lot thicker, and I think it'll have a better contrasting look between the koa wood, the shark's teeth, and the lash. And you can really see that there, how it's really thick, that dark look, and that's a result of the two-ply or double ply. The only downside to that is it takes a long time to lash. It probably took me a good 2-3 hours just to lash these teeth into place, maybe even a little bit longer. And so it's a lot of time. So if this was a larger piece, it could take me half the day just to lash. So now I'm going to go ahead and lash up the wrist strap. I've already made the wrist strap. It's like a 15 ply, so it's really strong. Now I just need to lash the end of it together, and then once the end is lashed together, I'll go ahead and heat that up, melt it together, and then it gets a waxed cordage. And then I'll go ahead and put the feathers on. The glue on the feathers is just to kind of hold them in place. It's really not there to be the final hold. It just kind of keeps them set so that when I go to lash them into place, it's easier to hold on to them. Same thing with the teeth, why I put a little bit of epoxy on the teeth. It makes it easier for me to tap the holes in the teeth and lash them into place. The lashing on this is pretty basic. I do this same pattern on pretty much every wrist strap. It's just a straight lash all the way up, and then it connects it into the wrist strap. So here is the finished piece. Oh man, this piece just looks absolutely stunning. Now this is inside of my workshop. It's just kind of a warm light in the workshop. It's kind of a cloudy day outside. I will take this outside so you can see it in the natural light as well. But under my workshop lighting, you could really see that three-dimensional effect on the curl, the black and white pearl, the sheen. It just looks absolutely gorgeous. I love this piece. Now unfortunately I won't be testing with this piece, primarily because I have to ship it out very soon, and so if I broke one of the teeth, that would take quite a while to fix it, and I don't have the time to fix it if it does break. I don't think it would, but I just can't risk that on this piece. But it looks absolutely gorgeous. The teeth are just monstrous teeth that I've tested with these style of pieces a lot of times, and every single time they're just powerful. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. I know I did. This is probably one of my favorite daggers or pahoa to date. It was a lot of fun. If you liked it, go ahead and leave a like and subscribe. Leave me a comment below, and I will see you in the next video. Aloha.